welcome to The Last of Us Part 2, even though what's on screen is from The Last of Us Part 1, I guess. What I'm going to be doing here is, I'm doing this for a friend of mine who does not have well, they have a PS4, they just don't have access to it right now. They are very sad. I'm doing this for a friend of mine because I wanted to be able to share this experience with them, except I can't right now. So, this is for you, Casper. I am currently live streaming this, and I will be downloading the live streams after I'm done with them and uploading them to YouTube with video that I'm recording on a camera in my room right now. Unfortunately, the people, if anyone watches the broadcast, I don't have any subscribers, I'm not a Twitch streamer, but anyone who joins in on the broadcast won't be able to see my face, but you will be able to do that on YouTube, except the quality might be worse, I don't know. I'm not gonna do a thing, I don't need to sync up this audio, it's fine. So basically, what I want to do right now is talk about The Last of Us Part 2 before I've even played it. So I've stayed away from most of the spoilers of the game, or at least I've tried my best to, but not everything can be avoided. And I feel like it's worth talking about because the game's only been out for a day at this point, and it already has some of the most divisive critical versus user reviews I've ever seen on a game, and I cannot find a single person who's just like, here's what the game did good and here's what the game did bad. It's either like all of the critics were paid and this game is like the worst game ever, or like people think it's flawless and are upset that people don't like it, and that makes me scared because well, why wouldn't it make me scared? I really like this franchise. The original The Last of Us is my favorite game ever, but I want to talk about just briefly I want to talk about why I love The Last of Us so much, and why I'm kind of scared to play this new game, and why I think this game is in a very unfair position to be like a sequel. So here we go with that review. So when I first heard about The Last of Us, it was just in a YouTube video of like upcoming Xbox games, and it was like, oh, this summer there's going to be like a new survival horror game. And I was 13, and I was in a phase where I really liked survival horror. That was like my shit, and zombies were all the rage. And so The Last of Us was a game that I could theoretically get my hands on and play. It was an accessible quote-unquote horror game. That's what I expected it to be, at least. What I got is what you see in front of me right now. It opens on this very somber window, which I think is one of the most memorable game main menu scenes ever. This right here is burned into my memory and is by far my favorite opening menu screen of any game ever. I've already said that, but I'm going to repeat myself because it bears repeating. I love this. And this is emblematic of all of the things that The Last of Us did right, I think. It was just pitch perfect in tone and everything. But then again, all of this is coming from the brain of a 13-year-old. So I was 13, and I expected a game, and what I got was very different from what I expected. I had never played a Naughty Dog game before. I'd never played Uncharted or anything like that. So this game was a surprise. All of its mechanics were brand new to me. whereas someone who would have played like the previous 3 Uncharted games, this game would have been kind of formulaic. And so I think why I like it so much is that it was my first Naughty Dog game, so all of the mechanics used in the game, like the yellow, using yellow edges to climb, and like boosting your teammates up, and like doing menial things like moving a cardboard. To me, the first time seeing those themes, they felt very immersive. Now, over the last couple months in 2020, the Uncharted series has been getting like free releases on PlayStation Plus, so I've been downloading them and playing them. And playing the old Uncharted games, something clicked in my head. I was like, oh, this is like The Last of Us. And as I played through the games, I realized, like, oh, The Last of Us the mechanics in The Last of Us weren't new. Naughty Dog has a formula that they've been sticking to for years, and The Last of Us was just kind of like a copy and paste of that. And so that's kind of I can understand why someone who had played all of the Uncharted games, if they had they went into The Last of Us knowing, oh, it's a Naughty Dog game, I know what to expect, I can understand why they wouldn't have liked it as much as I liked it, because to me everything was new. And then I played the Uncharted games and I was like, I've done this before. And by the third Uncharted game, it started to get boring. But I did recently, just a few days ago, play through The Last of Us again. I finished New Game Plus and got like all the achievement bullshit stuff done. It's still good. The Last of Us is still a good game. I still really like it. That's because I think a lot of it is because of some solid gameplay, the pacing, the level design, and the story and characters. Watching Joel and Ellie like get closer over the course of the game, to 13-year-old me seeing it for the first time, it was really impactful. Like the opening scene of The Last of Us, like the opening credit scene where Joel loses his daughter, like it made me cry the first time I was playing it. I was like, that was the only game I'd ever played where like in the first 20 minutes of playing it, I'm like fucking sobbing on my couch. I was like, what is this game? I don't know. Like, it wasn't what I was expecting, is what it was. So props to the game for that, right? And I mean, you go through this whole journey with Joel and Ellie, and you get to know them as characters and people, and then there's that ending, that okay, and the the amazing soundtrack plays. Another thing, this game has a fucking amazing soundtrack. I think the problem for me is not only do I think that The Last of Us is one of my favorite video games ever, but I think it's also one of my favorite stories ever. Like, of movies, of books, of anything. Just one of my favorite stories ever. And whenever they announced that whenever that E3 like teaser trailer played for the first time with Joel and Ellie, and that Firefly symbol appeared on the stop sign, I screamed out loud at the top of my lungs. I was unbelievably excited, as anyone would be, because I was getting a sequel to one of my favorite games. And so now we're going to talk about The Last of Us Part 2 and my expectations for it. And I want to start by saying what I wanted was, or what I want is to just see a little bit more development in Joel and Ellie's story. that is... Oh, my hair is awful. That is primarily what I want out of... This must be really boring to listen to without my face cam. I'm sorry for that. You don't have to watch this. I'm not playing the game yet. So I played Uncharted 4 last month because it was free on PS Plus, and watching the trailer for The Last of Us Part 2, having played Uncharted 4, something started to worry me that The Last of Us Part 2 is just going to be a retextured version of Uncharted 4 that fucks with all of these characters like the end of Game of Thrones. That is my biggest number one fear right now, is that, like, I'm going in expecting, like, I haven't heard anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if Joel dies. Like, he almost died in the first game, and this game, Ellie's the main character. I wouldn't be surprised if Joel dies. Fuck, I wouldn't be surprised if, like... I mean, that'd be pretty bold, but it'd be pretty cool if, like, halfway through the game that you've played as Ellie, fucking Ellie dies, and then for the last part of the game you play as Joel. Like, that'd be pretty neat. That'd be pretty cool. But, you know, it's like, I'm kind of expecting characters to die. This is the Last of Us game. But just like with, like, Sam and his son in the other The Last of Us, in the first The Last of Us, I don't know, because now I know what I'm getting into, I don't know if I can get attached to any of these new characters. Like, regardless of how many cutscenes or how much they help me or whatever they're in, I'm just going to spend the entire game... I'm worried that I'm going to spend the entire game waiting for them to die. And then when they do die, I'll be like, oh, I was right. And I'll be like a stupid, like, smug bastard about it. Like, oh, I guess this was going to happen. And I think that's unfair. The Last of Us 2 has so much going against it, because so many people think The Last of Us 1, like me, is like the best game ever. And now you've got to make a sequel to the best game ever. And the entire thing relies purely on story, I think. The story has to be amazing. Like, in The Last of Us Part 2, or no, in the original The Last of Us, like, when Tess dies, or when Joel decides to save Ellie, there are real moral consequences to those actions, but while Joel's kind of in the wrong, we can understand and empathize with why he's doing what he's doing. In fact, we're kind of rooting for him, maybe? Because we don't want to see Ellie die either, because Ellie's like an amazing character. The original The Last of Us didn't wallow in sadness. It wasn't dark and gritty just to be dark and gritty. Like, it wasn't overly... It didn't... It didn't overdo it with the negativity. Like, it wasn't dark and sad just to be dark and sad. It wasn't negative just to be negative. There were good reasons for it to be that way. Story, character motivated reasons. And there were also good beats, like the scene with the giraffe and everything. And it was spread throughout, so the pacing of The Last of Us was fantastic. Which is a big concern I have with this game. I have seen some gameplay of The Last of Us Part 2, and the user interface looks like it belongs in fucking The Elder Scrolls Online. It looks way too clean. It looks like Skyrim. The interface looks like it belongs in Skyrim, like clean white lines. It's just black and white and clean. In this game, in the original The Last of Us, the user interface is kind of like dusty and grimy, much like this picture of a window. It fits. And the user interface in The Last of Us Part 2, from what I have seen, does not fit well with the game. They shouldn't have changed it. It's too minimalist and too clean to be like somehow it's unimmersive. And that's just from watching it. Maybe playing it, I'll get into it, but watching it put me off a bit. You know, but everything's gonna put me off a bit because it's different, you know, like everything that's different, I'm gonna be like, oh, that's different from The Last of Us. There are some. No, I don't want to talk about that. Not gonna spoil that for people who haven't heard about it yet. I have seen that they added in a map function and they added in a rope function with these like open world. This like the levels are more open world. I am not looking forward to that. They added in a horse so you could get around. And that really scared me because the only time you really like use a horse in The Last of Us Part 1 is in the beginning of the Colorado University section. And that is the worst section of the game, in my opinion. The pacing grinds to a fucking halt in that level. All the way through. Even at the end, after, like, that level is bad up until the point where Joel gets stabbed, like falls and gets impaled on the rebar. That level up until that point is a fucking crawl, and it sucks. Like, it is the only part of The Last of Us that I just, like, I hate. I hate playing through that level. I hate galloping around on the horse. I hate how open it is. I hate how slow it is. It's just, it's bad. Okay? I can't remember exactly. I think it comes after, like, a big action intense part, but, the thing that made The Last of Us good was that its level design was like it was kind of like a Rubik's Cube. It was like a lot of branching paths, and it wasn't just this like open sandbox thing, right? Like, maps like that can work in games like Dragon Age Inquisition, where it's like fantasy role-playing and the gameplay revolves around it, but The Last of Us is very story and gameplay driven, and walking around exploring is not gameplay. It wasn't gameplay in the original, and I don't want it to be gameplay in this one, because you can't have tightly designed enemy encounters, in wide open spaces where you can run away and come back. You know? That is, like, I'm worried that that's going to play too much like Metal Gear 5 or some other, like, sandbox game, and that's something I really don't want. I don't want... Oh, I think my stream just went down. Okay, my stream's fine. Okay, we're good. Sorry about that. So yeah, I'm worried about, like, the map mechanics because they probably don't interfere with gameplay, but just, like, slapping those on and calling it a new feature doesn't make the game better by any means. And those are all things that are, like, in Uncharted 4. In Uncharted 4, you can, like, walk up to things and scribble them in your notebook. And in Uncharted 4, that's fun, and that's fine, because the notebook has been a part of the last 3 games. There was no function like that in The Last of Us. There were like the collectible note things, and like those are fine. Like finding collectible notes that have stories on them, that's fine. But I haven't played it yet. I don't know how it's gonna play out, but I'm just gonna say right now that it concerns me. I'm worried because I really want to like the game. I really want to get involved with it. I want to get invested in the characters, but like, I mean, The Last of Us Part 1 just had such a good story, and like that ending was so good, but all I really wanted in continuation from that is to see a bit of like literally an hour. Like, I think what I really wanted was just like, if The Last of Us Part 2 was just like an hour long and it was just Joel and Ellie like chilling in Jackson and just seeing what their lives were like for an hour, like, that'd be enough for me. I don't need a whole other like revenge mission, you know, like I don't need that. Like, I'm worried that because this game is like The Last of Us Part 1 or whatever, it was a story about love. It was a story about the love between Joel and Ellie, a father and his daughter, and the story came full circle. And it was a very tight, compact story. It felt like a book, it felt like a movie, it was amazing. Yeah. I'm worried that The Last of Us Part 2, I'm worried that this new game is going to ruin the first game for me. I'm worried that it's going to do something, or it's going to like kill off all the characters and like do something horrendous where I'm just going to have to like, I'm worried that when I finish playing that game, I'm going to wish I had just not played it at all. That's my biggest fear. And the people saying, like, I've had some story beats spoiled for me that, without context, sound legitimately awful. Like this game is just being brutal for absolutely no reason, just so it can say it was brutal and violent. And with like, also I've seen some gameplay and Ellie acts very like, Ellie seems like an asshole now. Like, her sarcasm has just turned into like straight like cynical, like fuck you, like go fuck yourself kind of an attitude, but in a bad way. Like, she just seems like an asshole to like everyone she interacts with. I don't know. I'm sure like even in like the opening like first couple missions, some of her dialogue was like, what the fuck, Ellie? Like, why would you say that? Yeah, those are my concerns. Like I said, I'm gonna be live streaming this, but I'm also gonna be putting it on YouTube with my face so my friends can see it. I am looking forward to this. I'm excited, but I'm scared. I've downloaded The Last of Us. I haven't even opened it yet. Like, I've legit not touched it. I've seen a little bit of gameplay from some people, just like look and see like, is this really something I want to get myself into? And it is something I want to get myself into. So, I'm gonna stop this stream here. And I'm gonna stop this video here. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm horrifyingly scared, but another thing about The Last of Us that I think, like, you go into The Last of Us now knowing absolutely nothing about it, and now I'm going into The Last of Us Part 2, like, like, imagine if The Last of Us Part 1 was a sequel to a game that followed Joel immediately after the outbreak. I don't think it would have been as good. because it was a sequel to some. Yeah, like we're going into this with memories of the old game. We're going into this already being invested in the characters and feeling too scared to get invested in new ones, and I don't know, it's just some of the stuff I've been hearing is concerning, but I'm just gonna have to see. I'm gonna have to suck it up and see for myself. So yeah. I don't think. Okay, so that's it. I'm gonna end the stream here, and I'm gonna start playing The Last of Us 2 in an hour or so. I just wanted to get this done so I can download it and check out the features and see how I'm gonna edit this. So yeah. Thanks for watching this part. I need to get better at looking right in the camera, and I'm sorry for the people who might end up watching this live stream that I don't have my webcam set up. I tried doing this whole like remote play thing by like doing a thing where like I was playing The Last of Us through a window on my computer so I could record it with OBS, because the PlayStation 4 doesn't let you have a webcam, and it was just really complicated, and I don't know how other streamers are doing it. Actually, you know what? I haven't seen any other streamers play The Last of Us with webcams. Maybe I'm just stupid. I don't know. But yeah. Thanks for watching. I tried doing a really complicated setup. It's not working. The setup I have right now is really scuffed. Thank you for watching. I look forward to this. Wish me luck. This game's gonna hurt me. Okay. Goodbye.